A special election in Tennessee tonight could set the stage for the midterms. Why aren't Republicans polling as well as expected?
That was in me began to subside.
Jack Bradley. President Trump says strikes on drug boats in the Caribbean have significantly cut down drug trafficking by sea. And now the administration's gearing up to strike cartels by land. For more on this, we're joined now by our panel. Steve Scully is the senior fellow at the Former Members of Congress Association. We've got our Democratic strategist, Ashwani Jain, and our Republican strategist, Bobby Eberle. Thank you guys all for coming back on the show here. Really good to have you. Now, let's get into our first topic here. The Trump administration confirms that it struck a drug vessel in the Caribbean back in September, but the second strike on that same vessel is what's causing controversy. It's being reported that there were 2 survivors after the first strike. Let's play a clip of War Secretary Pete Hegseth at today's cabinet meeting on this.
We've only just begun striking narco boats and putting narco terrorists at the bottom of the ocean. As President Trump always has our back, we always have the back of our commanders who are making decisions in difficult situations, and we do in this case and all these strikes. They're making judgment calls.
Now, Ashwani, over to you. Congress is calling for an investigation into this. Where do you see this heading?
Well, you don't need a law degree to know that ordering our military to, quote, kill everybody on a suspected drug boat is unconstitutional, it violates due process, and it crosses clear lines of international law. But sadly, this tracks with a pattern. This is the same leadership that talks about executing U.S. senators for telling the military to follow the law. It's also the same leadership that claims that it's tough on drugs while somehow pardoning former Honduran President Hernandez, who brought in more than 400 tons of cocaine onto the U.S. soil. So if President Trump is serious about preventing this drug crisis from getting worse, he should act like it, not weaponize pardons, threaten lawmakers, or normalize illegal military strikes like what we're seeing right now.
Bobby, with the Trump administration cracking down on the Venezuelan drug cartels, Trump pardoning the former Honduran president who was convicted of trafficking cocaine, saying that the Honduran president was treated unfairly. Is this sending mixed signals?
Well, it's definitely sending mixed signals because we're talking about it. And, my counterpart made some good points. I think we should focus on what the American people want. And if we're talking about reducing crime in general, part of the open borders problem was drugs coming into the country. Venezuela contributed greatly to that. So if we want to cut down on that, if we want to target Venezuela for drug trafficking, let's do that in a clear, concise manner that we can stay on message and say we are fighting this and not spiral off to these other issues where arguments could be made that, hey, you're sending mixed signals, or perhaps we want a regime change in Venezuela. Is the drug trafficking attacks on these boats geared towards something greater, or are we certainly just looking after the homeland? If we do that, if we stay on message, then that is good policy. We just need to follow through and stay on point.
And Steve, considering all of this, do you think there are legal repercussions for that second strike, or are critics blowing this out of proportion?
No, I think it's legitimate to find out the facts. A couple of things. First of all, with regard to Venezuela, you even have Pope Leo saying, don't use force for regime change. That was the mistake of George W. Bush in Iraq. So the White House is getting an enormous amount of pressure when the president talks about land strikes right now. With regard to what happened off the coast of Venezuela, there were 2 individuals clinging to the boat. They were no longer a threat. And so if that's the case, based on Navy military guidelines, it could be classified as a war crime. And I think what is interesting is now you're seeing Republicans like Mike Rogers of Alabama, Roger Wicker of Mississippi, the Republican chairs of the House and Senate Armed Services Committee saying, look, we need to get to the facts. The role of Congress is oversight. We're not declared war on Venezuela. Yes, you want to get rid of the drugs in this country, but the way they're doing it could lead to a very slippery slope. And I think Congress finally is doing its job to get to the facts.
Let's move on to our next topic. The Trump administration's labeled Antifa as a domestic terror organization. Here's FBI Director Kash Patel telling our sister media, the Epoch Times, about the impacts and how this impacts his bureau.
So with our partners in Treasury, we are following the money and mapping out this entire network and treating them as a terrorist organization under the authorities the president has given us. And I think in the turn of the new year, you're going to see some very righteous prosecutions and investigations being published.
Ashwani, what's your response to this? Could this have any implications for future designations?
Let's start with the obvious. Antifa is not a formal organization. There is no headquarters, no bank account, no membership list. Every major law enforcement agency, including Trump's FBI, has said as much. So this is just political theater, point one. Point two, if Patel really wants to, quote, follow the money as he says, then great, let's apply that standard fairly. Because it's the president whose own financial disclosures show hundreds of millions of dollars flowing into his pockets. Private jets, crypto deals, Bible and coin sales from the Oval Office. If we're tracing funds, which in theory is very dangerous for our democracy, then why stop at activists when there is a current president turning public office into a revenue stream? If the GOP wants to investigate money trails, I'm all for it, but then let's start with the one sitting right in front of us and one based on facts.
And Jack, can I just
Bobby,
underscore that point? What is Antifa?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I mean, is it a single organization? It's a very, it's not a nuclear organization, is what I'm trying to say. So I agree with you that how do you go after something that is amorphous?
Well, they have an organizational structure, and that's why the Trump administration has been, issuing this proclamation here, or the designation
Sure.
rather. Bobby, your thoughts on the Trump administration tackling Antifa the same way it would a foreign terrorist organization?
Well, whatever gets us to serious and to shut down on this. I mean, clearly, when you go to these protests, you go to these riots, and you have people showing up, waving Antifa flags and organizing, you can follow that money stream. And when you talk about riots, when you talk about distributing bricks to people, when you talk about vandalism and people getting hurt and people getting killed, this is very, very real. And it is under this umbrella of Antifa that the Trump administration is going after. And this is exactly what the American people voted for. They want safe streets. They want safe neighborhoods. They want to actually go to a rally or a demonstration without fear of being assaulted, which we've seen over and over and over again. So I think this is definitely the right approach.
Steve, I want to come back to you and get your thoughts on
Sure.
this and where you think this is all heading. If you can just further elaborate on your points here.
Well, no, I agree. Look, it's a bad group of people. They are disrupting public events. So there's no question that we need to go after them. My only point is that the reality of who are you going after? What is Antifa? Yes, there's a group in Germany that's Antifa. Yes, we have them here in the U.S. So it's a legitimate concern. I guess I would say the devil is going to be in the details. Who are they going after? How do they connect the dots? Where does the money trail lead? It's going to be a much bigger task than just saying we're going to designate Antifa as a terrorist group, because it's more than just a single group.
Good point. I want to go to our next and final topic here. Let's turn our attention now to Tennessee. A seat vacated by Congressman Mark Green has triggered a special election tonight. The polls close at 8 o'clock Eastern. It's a surprisingly close race in a place expected to be reliably Republican. Steve, what's driving the competitiveness here?
Well, when you have the Speaker of the House in Tennessee with 12 campaign events on a day that they came back after the Thanksgiving recess, that tells you that they're concerned. But look, let's talk about the reality. It is December the 2nd, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. It is an off election year. It is a special election. So the turnout is going to be low. It's really a question of who are the base voters for Van Epps, the Republican candidate, or Boehner, the Democratic candidate, in this special election. A ton of money is being spent. And yes, it is a referendum on Donald Trump and the economy. And I can guarantee that whoever wins will win in the single digits. It will not be a 20-point lead that Mark Green had or 22 points that Donald Trump had. So I think it's indicative of just being kind of an unusual election at a tough time of year. The weather was not great in Tennessee. I think all expectations is that Van Epps will likely win narrowly. If Boehner wins, that's going to send shockwaves to the Republican Party. It's only going to further make it difficult for the speaker to do his job. But regardless, it's not going to be a blowout either way, regardless of who wins that race. And I guess we'll know in about an hour.
And Ashwani, do you agree with Steve here? Do you think this could be a potential referendum on Trump's how Trump's been doing in his first 11 months and the economy?
I mean, of course it is. The fact that this Tennessee race is even competitive should tell us everything. This is a deep red state. Republicans used to win it by 20 to 30 points without breaking a sweat. And yet here we are, and win or lose, with a Democrat neck and neck, voters are rejecting Trump very clearly. And every recent election shows the same pattern. The more that Trump and MAGA are on the ballot, the more voters turn away. That's even why we saw Virginia flip blue, why even Mississippi Democrats are stronger than ever before, and why Trump is sitting at a nearly 60% disapproval across polling. And here's a lesson I would say for my fellow Democrats. Voters don't want moderates, they want bold progressives. And as I write in Project 2027, if Democrats want to keep winning and keep this momentum, we have to stop playing it safe. And that is what turns even Tennessee competitive.
Which
Bobby,
is why
how are you seeing the
AOC was
election?
campaigning and Kamala Harris campaigning to, again, get that base vote out there for the Democrats. Sorry, just wanted to jump in on that point.
No, that's right. Both the Democrats and Republicans have been pouring millions into this race. Bobby, how should Republicans be viewing this, seeing how it's normally a Republican stronghold, but polls are showing more of a close race?
Well, I want to take off on what Steve said a little bit on the fact that this is off year, that this is a special election, that it's low turnout. And so I've seen it in my county. I'm county chairman outside of Houston. And after the big election in November, we kind of went along, just went on our way, did our business. And the Democrats are very good at regrouping and looking at that next election and looking at that next battle. So regardless of the fact that Tennessee is a strong, Republican state, this is a strong Republican district, Van Epps is going to win, but we always need to be vigilant. We always need to be out there working hard for our candidates. It's certainly a referendum on the president with the way things are going, but I think Van Epps will win, and I actually think he'll win comfortably.
All right. Well, Steve Scully, Ashwani Jain, and Bobby Eberle, thank you very much for your perspectives. Always appreciate it.
All right, friends, thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button above. Once you do, tell your friends, share it, spread the word about the 13-minute news hour so we can keep growing. And for more great content, check out these videos right here, and I'll see you next time.